A few years ago, I had the need to get GPS trackers because my mother had developed Alzheimer's, and at that time she was going off on long wanders and getting lost, so we had to put a tracker on her to basically find her when she went missing. And there are quite a few different GPS trackers available on eBay, and this one by far was one of it's a basic one, and it's just very good. And as long as you put a fresh battery in every day, this was the one we ended up using the most. It was fantastic. There's an article on my website, bigclive.com. If you go there and you click things to make and do, and you'll find a find wandering relatives article, and it shows you how these get set up. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about this tracker, which you think, oh, that's half the size, that's great, because this is a fairly chunky thing. And I saw this advertise a GPS tracker, and I thought, well, that's quite interesting, let's get one of those as well. And it's not a GPS tracker. It's listed on most of the listings that sell it as a GSM, GPRS, GPS tracker locator, and it says find your cars, find your kids. It's not at all a GPS tracker. And it is, however, quite useful. It's got this Android logo on it. It says Mini A8. It's actually a covert device. It's a listening bug. And it does have a function that you can find the nearest cellular station if you're in certain countries. Not in the UK. It just returned an error message when I tried it. But what actually happens with this is it's got a lithium cell inside it and a little cover here. You get a pay-as-you-go SIM, or a full contract SIM, but if you're using this covertly, I think I'd recommend pay-as-you-go. And when you slide the SIM in, it hits a wee switch at the back and it starts unit up. And then once you see the wee light show that it's registered, you can just put this cover back on, and that's it. Now, I'm guessing for continuous monitoring you could just leave it plugged into a USB charger, and maybe that's why it's disguised as a little mini computer type thing like that. But it will run for a modest time on the batteries, and it's got a few different modes. The standard mode is that when you dial this up, when you phone the number, it will answer and you'll be able to listen to everything in the room. And it's got two microphones. I'm not sure if they're both active listening microphones for the audio you're listening to, because it can also detect sound levels in the room. And that's maybe what one of the microphones is for. But it's actually surprising. You put this in a room anywhere in the world, to be honest, and you dial that SIM and you'll be able to listen to the room, which is very impressive. It works very well. But once you've dialed it, if there's credit in the SIM, and here's an interesting thing, if you get a pay-as-you-go SIM and you don't register it, so therefore it's not trackable in any way, you could actually stick it into this and use it, just treat it as a disposable item, because these are only about £10. And you could just plant it somewhere and forget it. If it lasted a few days, was it done its job, and you wouldn't ever want to be identified by the SIM if someone found it. So in that case, you could just put the SIM in, and when you call it, it will work, but it won't be able to call back because it's got no credit. However, I think this starts off in its sound responsive mode when you first call it, and as soon as you call it the first time, it sort of temporarily stores your number. And if it hears a loud sound in the room, and that's, I'm guessing one of the microphones is purely dedicated to a sound detection circuit, then it will call you if it's got a credit in the SIM. And it's quite interesting in the sense that, if you wanted to hear what happened in a room only when people came in, that's what it would do. As soon as there was sound in the room, it would call you. And to turn that off, you just send it a text, 0000, and that turns that mode off, and it will only respond to being called. And if to turn it on again, you'd send the text 1111. But whenever you actually take the SIM out, that seems to revert back to automatically turning on. The other functions it's got, if you send it the text DW, it does return a code for the nearest base station that it's connected to the cellular tower, which is how they're justifying it being a tracker, but it's not a tracker at all. Because the nearest tower, if you're in the middle of nowhere, it could be miles away, it could really be, you know, there's no, it's not accurate. You're not going to get 1 meter accuracy like this thing. It's just staggering the accuracy this gives. But this thing, I mean, this thing is typically accurate to within 1 meter. It sends links back to Google Maps. It's ridiculous. It's fantastic. But this thing is just going to give a rough guide, and it's not going to work in all countries. The other function it's got is SOS. There's a little SOS button here. If you send it the text SOS, it stores that number as that you sent it the text from as the SOS number. And if someone presses the button, it calls that number, and you can listen into what's happening. So that could just be an emergency device, so that if someone was being, you know, I don't know, interrogated, bullied, whatever, you could hear what was happening. But it's an interesting device. So let's open it and see what's inside. I don't think this is held up. I don't know if this is glued shut or... It's that rubbery... Oh, it opens quite easily, actually. So there's a big lithium cell stuck to the back of the circuit board. And it's stuck to... Okay, well there's the 2 little microphones. I'd guess one of these is a phone chip, one of these is a microcontroller, and this will be the dedicated modules used for cellular communication, the GSM communication. Chip numbers. Let's take a look and see if I can see any chip numbers in this. There are chip numbers, which is quite nice. Whether I'll be able to read them or not is debatable, because they're etched. This thing is not great at reading etched numbers on chips. Oh, there we go. This one is called... It's an ARM, ARM, MT6223DA. And underneath that says 1012-AOTL. And then presumably it's manufacturing code EP77J3. Okay, what's the other one? This one is 0916K LD. 0916KLD. Underneath that it says V0057002CDGB. I wonder if the GB stands for Britain. I wonder if it's some dedicated for local. And then it says China. And the little transmitter module here, what does it say? Hold on a second. Oop. It says, it's a bit messed up, the sticky label, Bowen BB02 Baby V1. Oh, and it's the rest is random Chinese characters. Oh, and it's got the IMEI number on it. I wonder if it's just a... yeah, I'm not really sure. So I'd guess, I would guess that the circuitry at this side is probably the audio circuitry. And this probably is a phone chip with a little controlling microcontroller. So, yeah, it's pretty neat. I wonder if oh, there's a little 8-pin chip there as well. I wonder what that's. I wonder if that's just temporary memory for storing the numbers. Hold on, let's just take a wee look and see if there's a number on that. Or that could be a little op-amp or something for the audio circuitry. Oh, I don't think it's got a number on it. No, I'm not seeing a number in that. Interesting. But yeah, it's quite a neat little device. It certainly doesn't do what they said in the... it's certainly not the tracker, which is a bit disappointing. But, you know, other than that, it is quite interesting. Yeah, that's just an anonymous chip. Don't know what that is. Yeah, it works very well. When I tried it, well, it didn't do what I was expecting it to do, but it was surprising to try it, and it did stuff. And look at there's a little spring-loaded pin there. I don't know what that's to make contact with. Is it a test conduit? I don't know if it's part of the antenna. I don't see a matching indent in the lid or anything like that it could be going into. It's almost as if it was going to make contact with something. Maybe it's designed for screening or something like that. But yeah, interesting enough. Oh, they mentioned that the standby time, they say, in sound activated mode is 5 to 7 days on the battery, a fully charged battery, and on the non-sound activated mode it's 12 to 15 days. But having said that, you just really don't know what you're going to get in something like this. It could, you know, it depends what actual capacity of cell they used, and they probably exaggerated those figures. I've also a sneaky feeling that the USB lead may have had a resistor in it, because when I plugged it in with the ordinary micro USB, it seemed to draw quite a lot of current while it was charging. I thought it was an excessive current, but maybe it just does actually charge the very high current. But yeah, interesting device. A little update. I've done some investigations on the chips. Looked at the charging current. Now this has a charge protection circuit built into it, this lithium cell, which is good. It's got the sort of the voltage sensor and then the little double MOSFET arrangement, as far as I can see. So that's good that it's got the protection. And I tested the current that this is charging on various power supplies, and if it's a full 5 volts, it charges round about almost 1 amp. But on other power supplies where the voltage drops a wee bit, lesser power supplies, it's more like 500 milliamps, so it's not that bad at all. The two chips, the one with the ARM on it, I think that might be a MediaTek chip, and it's actually the main processor, and it's basically a processor that's dedicated to the task of mobile phones, so it's got like the built-in GSM modem. So it's going to drive this module directly and handle a lot of things like dealing with power management and audio processing to a degree, I suppose. The other chip there is, the only data I can find of it is the big, huge, long number ending in GB, and it's actually, I don't think that stands for gigabyte, but that is a flash memory for the processor. So yeah, it's quite interesting actually, the circuitry, and that does suggest this little chip here is probably just an op-amp or something like that to process this microphone to detect the audio levels in the room. But yeah, interesting. It's gone up my expectations. Now I see there's a bit of protection in the battery, so theoretically it should be okay to leave it charging. Although then again, just leaving things charging all the time isn't always a great idea, because even sometimes these protection chips don't quite 100% protect as well as they could. They let some current leak through, but it does inspire a bit more confidence that it's got the protection circuit built onto it.